Hi, everyone. Welcome to Plaid's first community town hall. So, good morning, good afternoon, and maybe even good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Jean-Denis, and I'm the head of engineering at Plaid here in San Francisco. So I'm really excited about today. This is our first ever community town hall with developers, and I'm really excited for Plaid to engage with the community. Normally I'd be walking around and talking to a lot of you about the apps that you're trying to build, and I'd be excited to meet you in person. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we'll be doing our first town hall virtually this time. That being said, I'm really hopeful that in 2021 we can connect, in person and do a version of this event with everybody in the same space. Before I get started kind of with the event, I just want to acknowledge that the last 6 months, obviously have been very challenging for everybody because of the pandemic. We're all getting used to remote work, which I think for a lot of entrepreneurs makes it still a bit more difficult to get started and to build companies. And then obviously in America, but everywhere around the world, we're having a lot of issues around social justice and fairness. In the United States, with the Black Lives Matter movement, for example. So just want to acknowledge that we're very privileged, I feel, as a group, especially of developers and entrepreneurs, to be able to live in a time where we can still have positive impact on the world, just through the internet and technology. And one thing that's coming across in these difficult times is that money is important, and people's finances and financial life can be a huge source of stress for Americans and people in the world. And frankly, we've seen a lot of entrepreneurs in Fintech help with that stress, help people manage their finances better. So I'm really excited for what you as a group are going to build on top of Plaid and around the Fintech ecosystem. So to get started, I want to tell you a little bit about the origin story behind Plaid, which we don't talk a lot about, but I think it really speaks to what you all are trying to do. So 7 years ago, when Zach and William got started, they were trying to build an app for consumers, right? They were trying to build a Mint competitor, kind of a budgeting app. What happened is, they started building the app, and they kept encountering this really hard technical problem, which is like, how do we integrate with banks? How do we allow consumers to easily share their financial data to connect their bank accounts to whatever apps they wanted to use? And they realized that they could create an API to make this easy for other developers, and pretty quickly decided to pivot Plaid to that idea. And if you fast forward today, we have more than 500 employees. We operate around the world with a product in the United States, in Canada, in Europe, and there's more than 3,000 apps and services that are built on top of Plaid. But the reality is our founders what they wanted to do is build a budgeting app, right? They wanted to build a Fintech app like all of you. And I think that part of the mission for us, which is to empower innovators, is just really, really powerful. One of the favorite parts for me of every week is looking at the dashboard of all of the startups that are built on top of Plaid. And I always find one or two new ones that have found kind of creative solutions to problems and are trying to find a way to make money and finances easier for everybody. So that inspires me, right? That's what justifies all of the time that myself and every other Plaid puts into this API. We're here to help you innovate, and we're laser focused on making sure that our API is the best, that it makes it easy for you to connect your apps to hundreds of millions of consumers out there who want to rely on your services. So later today, Kate and Pritee will come and tell you a little bit more about some of the ways we've expanded our product in 2020. And I'm really excited to have them talk to you about the amazing things you can build on top of Plaid. Katie Neal from our policy team will join me later, and she'll dive deeper into some of these shifts and trends that we're seeing in consumer behavior and expectations, and how regulation is also shifting as a result of this. Something that underlies every product that we build is this idea that we want to make it as easy as possible for a developer to build an app, to go from 0 to 1. And that includes everything that goes from integrating with Plaid initially, to making it easier for a consumer to connect their account, to dealing with all the complexity of financial and bank data. We want to do whatever's necessary to help developers grow their businesses. So I have one request for you, though, and this is especially for those of you here who are building your first app on top of Plaid. The most useful that we can get is feedback from developers in the community about how we can help you be successful faster. Right. We get a lot of feedback from larger developers or from established apps that have been using Plaid for a while. And that's fantastic, right? Because we want to listen to those developers' needs and make the product better for them. But the kind of feedback that we only get rarely is that of a first-time developer that's experiencing Plaid. So if that's you out there and you're experiencing in your first journey towards building your first app some friction that you think we can solve for you, like please get in touch and let us know. And that is honestly like that kind of feedback is gold, and it's the only thing that we need in order to build better experiences for all of you. Now I want to talk about some of the trends and tailwinds that we're seeing in fintech that I think are going to benefit all of you as developers. So, obviously this year, because of COVID, we saw a huge movement towards online finances. A lot of people who used to rely on the bank branch are now going directly digital for their financial experience. As a matter of fact, for 75% of Americans, digital financial experiences has become the new normal. This is a huge sea change, right? People used to believe that they had to go to their bank branch in order to get all their financial services, and now are suddenly totally used to those experiences being offered online. We're seeing a wave of innovation, like we're early in the fintech story, right? I think we're like in baseball parlance, you would say we're like in the second inning, and there's so much more innovation that's ahead of us. But what's interesting is that I think now the innovation is not just happening in like the pure startup world, but the reality is we're starting to see fintech everywhere. So a core example for Plaid for us was this partnership that we have with Microsoft, where in Excel itself and Microsoft Money, you can use Plaid to link your bank account so that you can deal with your finances in an Excel spreadsheet with live data. Right? And we're seeing other large tech players like Amazon, Apple, Google, and Samsung. They're all going deeper in building financial products into their existing products for their users. But what's even more interesting is that we're seeing non-tech companies also start to embed financial experiences. So like a key example that we're observing are car dealerships that are using our product to improve and modernize the consumer lending process, or clothing companies that are looking to experiment with ways to create delightful and convenient shopping experiences like buy now, pay later, or buy online, pick up in store, or contactless curbside pickup, using like partners in the digital finance space. And so I think all of this together is indicative of this huge sea change towards fintech everywhere. And then, as Zach, our founder, likes to say, every company will be a fintech company in some way in the future. So I think this, the sea change in consumer expectation is the reason why we have a huge opportunity here to like educate and deliver new and delightful experiences. And I think that's why you as entrepreneurs should be so excited to be working in this space. Finally, for me, right, it's not just about the huge market potential that comes from fintech. It's really about growing the pie. So we've talked a lot about how growing the pie is about helping make the financial experience kind of safer, easier, and more intuitive for consumers. But I think another aspect that's really, really important is that fintech is allowing people who are usually underbanked or unbanked to lead more successful financial lives. I think we're chipping away in fintech at unfairness in the system in a way that allows more and more people to have positive financial outcomes in their lives. So, for example, in the US alone, 16% of people are underbanked, and 6% of people are totally unbanked, right? And these are people who are just not served well by the existing financial system. And fintechs have helped make a ton of progress and address this. So for example, 14% of low-income consumers started banking for the first time with fintech, right? And 2/3 of people who are making less than $50,000 annually say that they get better results, better financial experiences today because of fintech apps that they've started using. This is huge, and I think it shows that what you all are building is not zero sum, right? It's not just taking market cap away from existing banks. It's like truly value add, not just through better experiences, but also through allowing people who are not banked today to be able to live better financial lives. Before we move on to Pritee, Kate, and Katie, I just want to leave you with a few last words. Plaid operates under 7 principles that guide everything that we do as a company. And I think there are 2 that describe the relationship that I would like us to have with the community of developers. And those 2 are make it better and invent tomorrow. So my commitment to you is to make it better. Plaid and our team will continue our focus on making our product better and do as much of the heavy lifting as we can so that you can focus on building great products and great services for the people that you serve. In return, you have to help us invent tomorrow, right? Plaid, the nature of Plaid as a product is that we're providing you simple building blocks so that you can be as innovative as possible. And I'm really excited to see the kind of future that you build around finance, and really excited to partner with you to make that happen. And now I'm going to hand the virtual microphone to Kate and Pritee, who are going to talk to you about some of the new products that we built in 2020.
Thank you, Jean-Denis. My name is Kate Adamson, and I'm on the product team at Plaid. I joined the company actually 5 years ago, and now I'm a product lead on the financial identity team. Our team's mission is to help consumers apply for financial services in the most seamless and inclusive way possible. As Jean-Denis mentioned, Fintech is having a significant impact on real lives, from small businesses to millions of consumers. And we at Plaid appreciate that the driving force behind that is you, our developer community. We believe that you are building the future of Fintech. On behalf of everyone at Plaid, particularly the product team, I want to thank you for trusting us to help power your apps and digital services. This is not a marketing gimmick or spin. We are truly committed to the developer community. In fact, you're actually a core part of our mission. Plaid's mission is to empower innovation by delivering access to the financial system. If we don't empower you, we fail at our mission. So how does that mission actually translate to actual product prioritization? Anytime our products require additional development to make them actionable or useful for you, we consider that a development tax. That's a development tax on our ecosystem and a tax on Fintech innovation. So we like to prioritize products that help reduce the heavy lifting when it comes to developing on Plaid. That way you can spend more time on the things that you do best, like building amazing products, delivering great user experiences, and solving real big problems for consumers or businesses. Also, your feedback is absolutely essential to what we do. We think feedback from our startup community on the product team is particularly valuable. It actually informs which use cases, which services, and which data sets we should prioritize. So during this session, I'd like to highlight some of the things that we've been working on and what lies ahead for our product roadmap. I'm first going to talk about new use cases that we're powering. I'm second going to be talking about investments in Link. And then I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Pritee to share all the work that we're doing on developer experience. So to repeat, 3 things I'm going to talk about. 1, use cases. 2, Link experience. And then 3rd, Pritee's going to talk about developer experience. So let's start with the first theme around how Plaid is investing in greater data insights and new services that can help you scale your businesses even faster. So more data. Plaid's a data business. We understand that for consumers to be able to better manage their financial lives, you need to understand their full financial identity. And that doesn't just mean the money that they have in their bank, but it also can mean what they owe and their outstanding debt. So in the past year, we've expanded the types of data that Plaid can deliver through our products. And we're also improving the insights on top of that data, allowing the consumer to permission that information as well. So liabilities and investments. We launched those 2 products last year, and they help you build a more holistic picture of a user's finances. We've already seen developers like Savvy and Pillar use liabilities to help consumers better understand and manage their student loans, helping pave the way for a debt-free future. And this month, we're adding consumer permission data for mortgage. Mortgage data is the single largest debt category in the United States, accounting for a significant portion of a consumer's personal balance sheet. Having access to that type of data can help you deliver more personalized insights and recommendations to help consumers better understand and manage their debt. And our transactions product. Additionally, this year, we added more data fields to our transactions product, such as merchant name, store number, and payment channel. So now you can deliver users richer insights into their spending habits. So what's ahead? Payroll data. We believe workforce data access provides consumers greater control over their financial lives. We at Plaid are committed to expanding the consumer permission data that we support into the payroll space. So we believe this data access will enable innovation in a number of ways. We're relying on you to actually implement that. For example, in banking, consumer permissioned data can simplify and accelerate existing processes associated with opening a bank account, such as updating where your direct deposit goes. In lending, we believe it can help address a critical, widespread need to verify income and employment for a given consumer. Given the data is direct from the source, it can help reduce fraud. Additionally, it can replace manual processes that you may otherwise be relying on, such as reviewing pay stubs manually or calling employers to verify income. Additionally, we believe that this data can help provide a more detailed picture of a consumer's employment and income history, such as the duration of that income, how often they get paid, if they have any deductions, or the type of worker they may be, whether that's a salaried worker or a part-time. So now let's talk about theme number 2, our investments in Link, our front-end module. So Link is Plaid. It is a foundational component of our service.
So Link gives the consumer a secure and easy way to connect their financial accounts to your application. We also know that when it doesn't work, your users can't access your service or application seamlessly. As much as we are here to build APIs and developer tools, consumer trust continues to be a top company priority. We know it's important to helping you build the best experiences for your users. So we're continuing to invest in simpler, faster, and cleaner onboarding experiences.
So what have we actually launched? We recently announced an all-new Link experience that comes with a number of improvements. We made Link faster. We reduced the time that it takes for each and every pane to load. As a result, the account connection experience is nearly 30% faster. We improved the design by making it cleaner and more visually appealing, helping to ensure that an onboarding process is even more seamless than before. This last improvement is aligned with a continued investment in Plaid earning and maintaining consumer trust. Related to that, we've also launched new pages on plaid.com that allow curious users to learn more about Plaid. We've also improved the error messaging on certain institution pages within Link to give the user more actionable insights into what might be happening with their account connection. This might include information about specific institutions that have connection errors. Additionally, we've introduced more configurability, so you can customize Link for an even better user experience suited for your use case. The new Link configurations allow you to create multiple versions of Link based on your user's location, the language they speak, the features they're using, and even more. This helps improve conversions by tailoring the experience to what is most relevant to each user. In addition, we launched comprehensive filtering so you can configure Link to show only the account types or the subtypes even that your users want to connect to their app. So I'll pass it over to Pritee now to discuss the investments we're making in developer experience.
Thanks, Kate. I'm Pritee, the product manager for the developer experience at Plaid. Our team's goal is to help you go from 0 to 1 to millions as you're building your app powered by Plaid. Today, I'm going to talk about 3 highlights that we've been working on recently. The first is really early on in your journey with Plaid, when you're learning about what the products are and getting familiar with the documentation. We've recently launched a fresh new take on our docs that I'm really excited to talk about. The second is when you're ready to build with Plaid. We changed the way that you integrate with Link to incorporate Link tokens. So I'll be talking a little bit about that as well. And the third highlight that I want to bring to this talk is institution status. This is the way that you can monitor the health of institutions and the connection between Plaid and the banks and FIs that we help users connect to. The first highlight I want to talk about is improvements to our Plaid documentation. We know that whether you're just starting out, adding a new product, or just checking your understanding of how Plaid works, the documentation is a critical piece of the developer experience. That's why we really invested in making a more comprehensive, dynamic, and intuitive way of learning about Plaid. The learning platform includes features like more FAQs, improved quick start documentation, improved information on errors and troubleshooting, that I think will be really helpful, especially to developers who are just starting out. The second highlight that I want to focus on is link tokens. Kate mentioned some of the improvements we've made to make it easier on folks who are connecting their bank accounts to your application to have a smooth and seamless experience. On the developer side, we recently launched link tokens, which is a continued investment in the security and infrastructure of both our platform and the ecosystem overall. Link tokens has enabled us to build nifty features like link logs. When you pass in your concept of the user ID into the link token create call, we're able to map your native user model with all the activity that that user has undertaken within Plaid. So for example, if your users have usernames like the cat's meow 123, you could just take that username and search in the Plaid dashboard for the user's activity. Then you could see all their link sessions and Plaid activity and be able to easily identify if they had problems and troubleshoot it with them. The third main highlight that I want to talk to you about today is institution status. Right now in the dashboard, we have an institution status tool that lets you see the health of the connection between Plaid and the banks and institutions that we support. Recently, we've added more granularity to our data so that you can see the status of product institution pairs that you care most about, such as a bank and transactions or auth. We've also introduced a feature in which you can pick the banks that your end users care most about and have them show up front and center in the institution status tool. That way you can quickly check how things are going at the banks that matter most to you. Finally, I want to talk about what's next for the developer experience at Plaid. I want to share some of the thoughts that we have for our 2021 roadmap, but also implore you again to give us any feedback you have, because it's absolutely critical in determining what we deliver in the next months and years. On the Plaid integration front, we want to continue our focus on privacy and security of our platform and of the ecosystem overall. That means building authentication experiences that keep data transparency and permissioning front and center. We'll also invest in tools that make it as easy and transparent as possible to see what's happening behind the scenes of your Plaid integration and really understand how it's going. Our work on the Plaid documentation is far from done. There's more ways we can provide you information, including more robust quick starts and an open API schema that'll be released soon. We're excited to have you as part of our community. It's a delight and an honor to see what all of you are building and know that, at least in some small part, your applications are powered by Plaid. I'll now pass it on to Katie Neal, who will talk to you about opportunities ahead in Fintech.
Thanks, everyone. Hey, I'm Katie, and I'm on the policy team at Plaid. I'm an outreach and advocacy manager for us, which means I spend a lot of time working with regulators, advocacy groups, consumers, and developers to make sure that our end products are ultimately benefiting consumers and that innovation can continue to thrive. So I'm here to talk to you about a few things today. I want to cover some of the macro trends we've seen over the past 10 years in our ecosystem. I want to talk about the effect of COVID-19 on Fintech, and then I want to share some opportunities that we at Plaid think are really exciting for the future years of Fintech and how we can build a greater, more inclusive financial ecosystem for everyone.
First, I want to talk about some of the trends we've seen over the past 5 to 10 years. We're at that stage where we've obviously moved beyond the early adopter type of consumer, and we're now starting to broaden our reach into all different types of demographic. So Plaid was actually really interested in finding out what we had been doing over the past 10 years and who was adopting us now. So we conducted a nationally representative survey with Harris Research, and we found some really interesting statistics that I want to share with you all today. So first, we found that 52% of baby boomers and Gen Xers are Fintech users. We found that 14% of consumers who open a banking account for the first time do so through a Fintech application. We found that parents are using Fintechs more than their childless counterparts to manage their budget and improve their financial lives. And we found that rural and urban consumers are using Fintech at almost the same rate, focused primarily on banking applications, payment applications, and investing applications. We also found that the Black population, Hispanic population are using Fintech at almost equal rates to the white population. So these are a few of the things we've seen in the survey we conducted. I think that there's still a huge opportunity for all of us Federal Reserve estimates 55 million unbanked and underbanked consumers in the US today. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the end about how we can start addressing that population and bringing more people into the financial ecosystem. I also want to talk a little bit about the impact of COVID-19 on fintech and our consumers. So our lives have changed drastically over the last 8 months. Our financial lives have changed drastically. And we're probably at the point where there's going to be a difference going forward for the rest of our lives. So a lot of in-person bank branches have closed. Most people are engaging with their finances through mobile-first applications. Our credit scores are no longer predictive or indicative of our ability to repay. And fintech applications are starting to step into the more mainstream traditional financial ecosystem. We actually saw that with the CARES Act that was released earlier this year, that fintech lenders were allowed to participate in the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program for small businesses for the first time ever. We saw that the Federal Reserve opened up its lending facility to fintechs for the first time ever. And fintechs were really able to step up during this time period to deliver loans to the truly small businesses, whereas some of the larger institutions were delivering loans of $200,000 to medium and larger businesses. We saw fintech lenders like Square Capital giving out loans of $15,000 to some of the truly small businesses that were turned away at the big banks. The coffee shop I visit every day down the street was actually one of the ones who received a loan from a fintech lender, and they credited that loan with being able to stay open during the first 3 months of the pandemic. This actually takes us to one of the first things I want to talk about as an opportunity for fintech. So increased regulator acceptance isn't just happening as a result of the stimulus package. We've seen financial regulators over the past year have an interest in learning more about demand deposit account data as a method for underwriting small dollar loans for consumers. We've also seen financial regulators interested in cash flow underwriting for small businesses who have historically had a hard time getting credit if they're new or if they don't have a history of credit in the first place. So this has been really interesting for us. Financial data is also driving innovation across a wide variety of use cases. And a good example here is lending. The more financial data you can bring in about a consumer, the more you can understand that consumer holistically and better understand their ability to repay than a credit score that includes a delinquency on a credit card 7 years ago. So real-time data is important. More data sources are important. And we're really starting to see lenders adopt these more real-time, relevant data sources for lending, both in the small dollar loan space as well as in some of the larger loan space, like mortgages and student loans. And actually last week, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, released a notice that they are going to be conducting a rulemaking on authorized access for consumer data. And so this is something that Plaid is incredibly passionate about. We believe consumers should be able to permission their data from whatever account they want to power a use case that benefits them in their financial life. And so we're really excited to see that the CFPB is starting to think about this as well. Banks are also starting to notice this increased fintech adoption and acceptance. So data is now becoming more of a two-way street. Banks are not just supplying the data, they're also consuming data as well. And there's a lot of opportunity for us to partner with banks and start to help them build these tools that they want to build for consumers as well. Plaid actually recently noticed a trend here, and we built Plaid Exchange, so that banks that are not building their own in-house APIs can have an API to connect to the fintech ecosystem, and that we can provide reliable and consistent data from those banks to fintechs, and so those banks can consume the same types of data that we've been supplying to the ecosystem as well. The last trend I want to talk about today is one that I've been alluding to throughout, and it's the ability of fintech to address the unbanked and underbanked consumers, that 55 million number I spoke about earlier, which doesn't actually even include credit thin or subprime consumers who are also left out of the traditional financial ecosystem. And as many of you here know, it's incredibly expensive to not be able to access those services. Services that are offered to those consumers today can be predatory in nature or not actually representative of a consumer's ability to access credit or repay. And there's a lot that fintech can do to sort of bring in new tools and build more actionable products for these consumers. And I spoke a little bit about this on the data piece earlier, but thinking about what sort of data we can bring in for these consumers outside of traditional bank account data or credit card data. So can we bring in rent data, utility data, telecom to better understand a consumer's ability to repay and access credit? Can we build actionable investing tools rather than passive investing tools? Can we build really intuitive mobile-first experiences for these consumers? And so I think that there's a lot we can still do to address this population. And we're very interested to see what FinTech will keep building.